Hey, Carl.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. How about you?
Oh, I just uh, all right, that's better. I'm good. There's a gigantic conference in town this week called Web Summit, so I'm trying to psych myself up for that.
Cool.
Do the conference thing, make little games for myself to like make sure I talk to like people.
That's why I
Yeah.
can't do conferences. I mean, yeah, like unless I have like a Kindle or something to drag around with me that will make sure that I talk to people and get introduced to people, I can't do it.
Hmm. Yeah. I've been slowly like exposure therapying myself to like meetups, local meetups and stuff, and definitely feel like okay, like I was here for the main thing, I'm ready to go, and then I'm like nope, just talk to one more person, and then I do that, and then one more person, and I just try to get like I don't know three or four.
It's a good thing to do. It's a really good thing to do. It's a good skill to build.
Hmm.
Um, and it sounds like you were like me in that it's not natural.
No.
Hey, Brian. Good
Goodbye.
to see you.
Likewise. Looks like I wore the right color shirt today.
Mm. I have no idea how many people will show up, so we'll see. Was it last week I had 5, 6 people? So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
we were just talking about going to conferences. Carl has a big one in town.
Yeah,
Oh,
Web
which
Summit.
one's that? Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a big one.
Yeah, Vancouver for the first time. City has invested a bunch to get it here, so really going all out. I'm just trying to plan my schedule because there's like a million like before and after things every day. So
That's where you are. It's Vancouver.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh, I don't know. It's getting hot here, so you know it's the hide from the blazing thing in the sky season, and our but hopefully our D&D groups should stay busy for the rest of the summer, so maybe that'll be okay. Minutes. Um, so Brian, what's new in your world?
I think I was out the last few calls because I had some travel and it's just been busy. Um, yeah, I've been talking to a lot of startups just because I'm involved with this local accelerator. And as far as the fractional opportunities, I think a lot of the startups, especially if they're interested in accelerator money and investment, are really too early. You have the people who don't have a technical co-founder and don't realize why they need one. And so I'm, asking myself, should I try to sell into that? And my instincts is like, no. Uh, and then you have like later stage companies. And what I'm seeing so far is they usually do have a technical co-founder. That's how they got to that later stage. And I think my instinct is further on in the startup life cycle is when it's like when they start kind of like tapping out what that original founder can really provide in terms of like engineering management, process infrastructure, security, growth. It's like when they might start looking for a fractional CTO. So just I'm learning by doing. You probably already know all of this, but I kind of have to
That's
like see it for myself.
that's part of it. I mean, I think the part of the long tail of all of this is the networking involved in being there, having the conversations with them early, staying in contact with them. So when they say, okay, our founder over here is not getting us there, or even
Yeah,
ideally, you can help that person recognize that there are the things that they don't know and that there's someone that can help them do it, help them get there, right? But you've got to be there. You've got to be top of mind. They've got to
yeah,
recognize that that's your space. So keeping some conversations going, and if they're local and you can do, actual coffees, or you wind yourself up at the same meetups or whatever, then that's even better, because you sort of have a natural cycle to it, instead of I'm calling this guy and trying to get him on the phone and take an hour, a half hour, 15 minutes to just talk. And, it's, I've found it's very hard to build a natural cycle of just loose, open conversations without something else going on.
Makes sense.
I have a couple of people that I've built that with, and one of them did build work. One of them did create work. The other guy hasn't, but he might actually be a coaching student someday. We'll see.
You never know.
Because he was thinking about, maybe I'm going to tackle this fractional thing, and then he wound up in a full-time job. So, maybe the next time, because he was a soloist who built a consulting business, built an agency, grew the agency, partnered the agency away, walked away from the agency, and was like, I realized that I realized I made so much more money working for myself. But he also has grown to the point where he doesn't want to be that soloist contractor anymore.
Yeah.
He wants to do, further up the chain.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So Karl, you said you were kind of building mini games to help you facilitate your way through the conference.
Yeah, just tricks to keep myself talking, and yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just not very good at just like going up to random people and being like, hi, and have to have like prepared questions, and then that's even just to engage. I also don't exactly have tight positioning right now. So remembering what's the succinct version of what I do, or even my work history, is also a challenge, because I find myself like, oh yeah, this is the long version of me telling the story. Like, does this make sense? But it's also good practice. I also have to, I have to remind myself, like, there's always another conversation. Like, this is not the end all. So
if I screwed it up here, all right. So quick, what's your intro? Give us your pit. Give us your
pitch. You set yourself up.
No pressure. All the pressure.
Yeah, I didn't even see it coming. What am I this week? This is actually a really good question going into the Web Summit. What am I to Web Summit? Because there is some gaming stuff too, but I'm just not sure, because my background is mostly video games, but I have some e-commerce and fintech experience, and I've been reluctant to like
your
focus.
Next client to be.
What my next client to be. Also a really great question.
Hey, I mean, you could always do it like I did. I went to a conference in April, and I showed up, and people were asking, I'm like walking up to people, introducing myself, and then people were walking up to me and asking me what my deal was, and my answer was like, I don't know. I'm like figuring it out. Like, what are you doing? You could always go that route.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to be honest. You start to you actually create questions that can help guide you, and it's a large part of when I was pivoting this for the first time back in 2019. I don't know what I want to do. I'm just talking to people. Tell me what there is, right? And that is kind of part of the listening tour. I mean, the trick is here. If you could use the conference as a mini listening tour, right? You'd say, okay, who are you? What do you do? Okay, you're a software developer. Moving on. Okay, you're a founder, you're a CTO, you're a CEO, you're something like that, right? Great. Then let me ask you some questions. And the questions are like, what do you do? What keeps you awake at night? What problems do you have? How does that, why are you here? You're here in this conference, right? What do you expect to get out of this conference? Those types of things. Simple questions like that might start to, if you can get 10 people, but here at a conference, conference this size, you could probably talk to 100 people easily, right? That you don't know if they're in your ideal audience, but because you don't know what your ideal space is. But, and also what industry do you identify in?
Mhm.
Because if they're a founder, if they're a CEO, they're building a business. They have a target, right? We kind of identify as fractional. I identify as coach these days. But there's our industry, but
Mhm.
these guys have something else that they're thinking about.
Mhm.
So and get them to tell you. And if you find that there's 100 people and 50 of them are all in construction tech, and you're like, okay, well, how does my fintech e-commerce overlap with that? And they're asking
Mhm.
you about their problems, and they're like, our problems are all about getting, our shopping carts fulfillment to work. They're like, okay, all
Mhm.
right, call 50 people up and sell helping them fix their shopping carts. All right. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
there it is.
Okay. No, thank you. That's great. I was originally kind of dragging my feet to kind of prepare for the conference, but now I'm seeing that I could use it as preparation, or I could use it as like this testing experimentation ground. So I don't have to go in like with a laser sight target ready to go. I can learn from it like as big a big melting pot of information. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And when you do run into somebody who's not in the space where they would be a buyer,
Hmm.
maybe the simple question is, do you know somebody that would be,
Hmm.
right? Whatever that is, if that's, any CEOs I can talk to, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because they might be there with their boss.
Yeah, that's reminds me of like a few months ago. I was at an event and I was talking to a guy, and I think I just said I was a fractional CTO, and didn't maybe I explained just very like generically what that is, and like I can help with these types of things. And then he's like, oh, like actually, I think at the time I was a little bit excited about this idea of having like a productized service to set up, bringing in like university interns, because that's how I got my first gig, and I have relationships with the universities here, and to kind of make that like having like a successful way to do that. And then he was like, "Oh, like we're thinking about hiring engineers here, and maybe like we don't have any technical expertise, like maybe you'd be able to help with that." And I was like, "Oh yeah." We kept in touch, and then but I had, because like they're like a media company that has this kind of like their own Instagram, niched Instagram kind of app thing that they don't monetize, but it's got tons of usage and stuff. But the whole development team's in Armenia. And anyways, I definitely approached it as like, I don't know, it's not exactly my target market, but I'll just listen and find out kind of what things are going on. And then we recently had coffee, and then he actually thought of like, hey, do you do like kind of like an audit thing just to know? Because we're so removed from the actual developers. I'm like, because I was asking questions like, do you have access to your like all the source code and the infrastructure, just like basic things, but he didn't really have the answers. And so then now he got thinking like, and now I'm going to quote, like give him a proposal to help get all those answers and stuff.
Awesome.
So yeah, I guess I can just do that over and over at Web Summit. So.
Yeah.
I appreciate the inspiration there, Brian. Somebody I talked to, we have local CTO lunches or meet that we do once a month now. After I pushed somebody, well, I had a conversation with somebody, and he was like, "We should do this," and I said, "You should, yes."
Yeah.
It took me a year to get there after he started it, but because I had my schedule, um, but and it's an hour away. It's downtown. And but I talked to him last week. I think it was last week. Yeah, last week was and he said he went to a conference in San Francisco, and I think it was AI-ish because they're kind of in that AI space. I'm being very hand wavy there intentionally. And but he said he had 75 leads. He'd followed up with 50 of them. That turned into 20 project proposals that they were working on. They're an agency, so and he had 25 more to follow up with. And it's like, and I'm like, what did you do? He's like, I just walked around talking to people.
Mm, okay.
So
Yep.
Gotta,
be prepared, get
yeah,
named, have your
have some
phone,
lozenges and
hit LinkedIn invites every time you meet somebody.
LinkedIn.
yeah. Yeah, I made business cards for the first time in like over a decade. So, yeah. Okay, that's great. I feel a lot better about this week now.
Doesn't
awesome.
LinkedIn have a QR code thing now? So
It
that like
does.
you can
It
just
does, yeah.
Yes.
practice it, prepare it, so you know how it works, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And which nobody knows how it works. So if you can figure it out, it's super impressive to people.
I will have it ready.
Like, oh, well, so somebody did it to me the other day. I forget where. Like, oh, well, what's your? And I'm like, just give me your phone. I'll type my name in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Good
thing
stuff.
I found from my recent experience was, I have these very harried conversations on the conference floor, but all of the follow-ups were amazing and they were a completely different tenor. When you have like half an hour with somebody, it's one-on-one, it's quiet. And so that's the other thing I would say is like, I think people would do this automatically, but make the time and show up focused. And because that's where the real gold, I think, comes from. Because every kind of like person that I met that I followed up with afterwards, I like it just like solidifies that relationship. Because I'm sure there were many people that they never followed up with. There's not necessarily anything to kind of like carry on a continuing conversation. So for me in my career, ongoing conversations, which I think people just call relationships, has always been like a huge thing for me. So just
Mm-hmm.
being able to have these ongoing conversations, it doesn't mean I'm talking to that person every week or every month, but like being able to go back and like, hey, like remember like last year we were talking about such and just like picking it up has
Mm-hmm.
been huge for me. So that's my pro tip.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had I don't know, when you say that, I recall a few that I'm like, I've been trying to do it, but they haven't exactly got back to me in a while. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's also just keep doing it. Yeah,
Never too late.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just
that's
because
true.
you haven't reached out, or they haven't reached out in a year or 2 years or 4
Yeah.
years, it's never too late to say, "Hi, wanna grab a coffee?"
Mm-hmm.
Or I know sometimes some people advise getting more specific and focused than that, and if you can, that's great, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and especially when you have a specific ask, but honestly, it's okay to just catch up and
Yeah.
you know, that if that's your default to fall back on, fine. Especially when you haven't talked to them in a year or 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
then it's really catching up. If it's 3 months, it probably needs something a bit more specific, like, "Hey, how about that proposal I sent?" Or, "Oh, yeah, I finally nailed my positioning statement. Do you wanna hear it?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's usually some hook, right? There's some reason why you're both on each other's radar. So it's
Mm-hmm.
usually easy to go back to that. At the conference I went to, I was talking to a founder who had a Web3 startup. And I felt like I was the only guy at the conference who understood what he was talking about. So like that's an easy thing for me to go back to him at any point and be like, hey, like, remember that thing that we were talking about, Web3?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I see your VR headset in the background. Is that for fun or for work or both?
yeah, I was at Meta for 10 years. I left at
Oh,
the end of last year. So that's a complicated answer. I'm not sure if it's fun or work. A little bit of both.
all good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Karl's in the gaming space.
yeah. I shipped a Oculus Go game on my own, but the store is gone now, and
Yeah.
that's also a thing I do is I like to ship on stores that are about to close. That's
Right.
personally that's for the personal projects, so it's less pressure than a store that's actually open.
We did that with AAA games, so I
What-
mean,
What about stores that everybody thinks is shut down, but actually isn't?
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. That's
Because I worked on Facebook games for a part of my tenure at Met. And
yeah.
it's amazing to me that how many people have no idea there are games on Facebook.
well,
And it's a huge business for them.
there's a weird. I mean, I started shipping Facebook games in like 10, so that was the first time
Mhm.
we shipped one, and
Mhm.
it's a weird space because after the early years of over pushing, over socializing, they realized we have to back this out because people,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then it sort of just became its little target, its own little niche, which is great,
Yes.
but it does mean that people don't get exposed to it the way they used to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it affected social game companies and social games because it relied on that sharing and engagement,
Mhm.
but it kind of became its own wall. So I
Yeah.
I got out of it before that wall happened, but I saw the wall go up.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah,
it's still
it,
around. I
yeah,
guess instant games or something is what it's
yeah,
is now,
instant
right?
games, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
HTML5 games, yeah,
Yeah. 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 Because
and
like
it's,
there
they're
was
still sharing.
Flash.
There's
Sorry. Go
tournaments,
ahead.
and yeah,
Oh, okay.
there's a whole thing. Just nobody
Yeah.
knows it's there, and it makes the developers that are doing well are doing really, really well.
Mm, nice. Good stuff. So then you've
But
been fractional since, or sorry.
well, I I had to recover, so I didn't do anything for a while, and then I went to this conference, and then kind of had to ask and answer these questions for myself and others, like what am I what am I doing? What am I looking for?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of like echoing the conversation we've been having on this call, and so I'm figuring it out. There are certain things that I know, um, regardless of what happens, and that's things like I don't want to sign up for anything that's like one thing that's full time. I have like too many things that I want to do. Opportunity cost is too high. Um, Flexibility is really important for me. Um, and in some ways, that's a reaction to being at Meta for so long and having that be all encompassing. Like I've been reaching out to people from because I worked for 20 years before I joined Meta,
Mm-hmm.
and like going back and reaching out to those people and like having to apologize and having to make this excuse of kind of like disappearing down the
Mm,
Meta rabbit hole. Because when you're at a company like that, you just you don't even use like third party tools because like the company's like providing everything, and like
mm,
your professional network is like it's like the company's network. So having to
right.
kind of like rediscover, rebuild, reconnect to a more normal market and ecosystem and kind of like external context is kind of what I've been doing.
That was
But
so
yeah,
much
and
problem
so
with
I have a bunch of irons on the fire. I'm like trying to make one of them happen so I can actually start making money and having some initial proof that I can do this thing that I want to do, which is kind of like a bunch of different things part time.
Mm-hmm.
the all the internal platforms is one of the hardest problems that I always saw when we'd bring in especially Google engineers who now wanted to rebuild Borg. It's like we what do you mean we can't, we have to, like, no, back down. We're not
Yeah.
Google, we can't build that.
Yeah.
And we were guilty of it too, right? Coming out of EA, we built all our own stuff. We actually, except for Nucleus, we almost didn't lean on anything. But we
Yeah.
went to Zynga, and Zynga had a lot of internal platforms, and they were well aligned to the build games we were building. And then after that, it was like, well, we want some of that, and want some of that. We kept rebuilding a piece we stole from Playfish when
Yeah.
and it was like we kept rebuilding it because it fit what the team knew how and how they were shipping games. And
Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean, it's you gotta be careful about how much of it you do. And especially when it's not,
Yeah.
if your team is made up exclusively of people that are ex Meta and you rebuild the Meta toolkit just enough for you, or ex Netflix and you build Netflix's platform or whatever, then it's kind of okay. And then you bring people in one at a time and they come into your
Yeah.
toolkit. But if you step out to a completely independent team that doesn't have any of that, you can't like force that on them.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the perennial, debate of like build versus buy. It's just like it's. I think people, and especially engineers, kind of underestimate the cost of building it yourself. Like that's hugely expensive. But like, if you're used to getting paid to
Mm,
do that, it's like it doesn't feel expensive.
And
yeah.
building it is only the first part of the cost.
Yeah. That
Right.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I know I have to, there's certain projects where I'm like, I'm going to force myself to not write code first. Like I have to like be very explicit with myself because I know that's what I jump into. And then right away, I'm like, why am I doing this? But do the other things first. And yeah,
Yeah.
the tendency is definitely not that. So it was funny you mentioned like the meta, like just, you're just like kind of gone. Because
Yeah.
I've noticed that too with like former colleagues. They trying to remember exactly which place. I think it might be Microsoft, like the
Same.
Gears of
Yeah.
War stuff, like what are they called? I forget the name of the studio, but the
Yeah. I forget
coalition.
too.
Yeah, they'll just join it, and then I won't hear from them ever again. They'll just be super quiet, and then eventually they'll leave, and then they'll come back to life. And but I don't know I don't know if it's like, it's an interesting perspective about like internal tooling, but I think there's also like there's some social stuff and like
Oh yeah,
it's like
for sure.
and like Microsoft Xbox has their own conference yearly, XFest, but it's
Okay.
like you can't talk about it, and it's like super secret
Right.
and blah blah blah. And I think that adds to it. And even all their
Yeah.
SDKs are like behind lock and key, and they reinvented like, well, not reinvented, but they're like, we don't need to use OAuth. We'll come up with our own token crazy spec that we don't provide that many implementations of, but you'll get the spec. And anyways, I
Yeah.
could probably go on about
Yeah.
XDKs and GDKs and whatnot. So
Yeah, I think that's part of it, that confidential, proprietary nature of things. I think my experience too was once you're inside the machine like that, it's hard to find people outside the company that you could talk to, confide in,
mhm,
complain to, that
mhm.
understand what you're talking about. And so a lot of it, you have to look to other people inside the
That's true.
company. So like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
another big part of it.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I feel like that's part of why, like, yeah, I don't know. I left games for the first time, and then I was like, "What's a product manager? We have QA engineers. What is this? Like, I don't
Right.
understand. Like, this is crazy. Like, and like, there's an emphasis of not having on-prem stuff. Like, I don't like. It was just like mind blowing at the time. I think things have caught up a bit, but still, it's like so different on the outside.
Going into
Um,
games, it was like, well, what's the producer? What's an assistant producer? What is this stuff? I mean, I know what this does in the movie industry, I think.
yeah,
What does this
yeah,
apply to here? Like,
yeah,
okay, they're just all project managers, whatever.
yeah.
Hey, Jan, welcome to the party. We are just talking. Um, there's no rules, no agenda, so feel free to join in. If you want to introduce yourself, you're welcome to.
Hello, hi. I'm Jan. So I'm interim finance director, London-based, working on strategy, innovation, AI, and all the interesting stuff. I do fractional roles, and just keen to see what's happening out in the fractional world with all of you.
Great. Nice to see someone who's not a CTO.
Absolutely, yes. I've met so many CTOs and CFOs, and not many CFOs, but a lot of CTOs. Yes.
We were kind of all in that space. In fact, we're all various graduates of the game industry, so we were just talking about game industry problems. Um, and
Mhm.
so what? So if you're doing finance, any particular industry, any particular focus?
So I do civil service and scale ups in the private sector. I particularly like fitness, travel, anything that is into gaming, all the upcoming industries that are the movers and shakers in the market, particularly B Corp organizations.
Um, I talked to someone, was it last week? I think that was considering a focus into the travel industry. Um, because for all the reasons, right? Like there's interests align, and if you have interest in a specific industry, that helps you to go learn it, right? And they have contacts in the travel industry. So,
Yeah.
um, how has that been kind of in that space the past couple of years with all the changes recovering from
It's
2020?
Yes. On the finance side, I think over the last 10, things been the number of PE exits in the UK has been really slow over the last 10 years. And I would say the finance transformation ERP implementations have been on the back burner for the last 2, 3 years as well. So when it comes to mergers and acquisitions or even ERP systems implementations, they've all taken a back step, I would say. So the fractional roles have been typically quite tricky. The market in the UK is picking up slightly, I would say, David, but fractional roles tend to be 1 day a week. Um, it's good that they are remote, but sometimes the day rates aren't really great as it was the last maybe year or two.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, with the geopolitical issues that we're facing globally, we kind of hope that end of this quarter or the next, things would slowly start to pick up. Not sure.
Right.
How has it been on your end?
My end has been dead, to be quite frank. But I also burned out. I got tired of what I was doing. I just had no energy to put into it. I needed to refocus and reposition, and I wound up in this position.
Oh, wow.
So, we'll see what the fractional side of the business brings, but at least this I was able to get energized about and talk about and enjoy having conversations about. So I'm like, well, let's do this. Let's just go back to helping people, because that's at the end of the day all I like to do anyway. So
There have been a lot of increase in entrepreneurship as well, with people trying a lot of new things. And on the other hand, I found the fractional side of things, David. There's a lot of supply, but the demand and the awareness of maybe even SMEs or even scale ups to know that they could have a fractional FD, which it's more easy to have them on a short-term basis rather than committing to a full-time finance director.
right.
I think that the awareness and the knowledge could be slightly better over the coming years. So definitely supply is way too high for fractional as well. So the London market is right now pretty bad.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I mean, I believe that there's still, as much as when we start looking at it, we see a lot of commentary about fractional. There's a lack of understanding and recognition from businesses
Yeah.
what's available to them, and that's kind of our job to get out there and try to. That's our biz dev, right?
Mhm.
Is explain this is what's available to you. It might not be me, but this is available.
100%. I have seen a couple of people sharing on LinkedIn how easy it is to have a fractional FD, but I'm not too sure. Sometimes in the London market, it's all about following the crowd rather than just going in and trying and then being a pioneer.
Right.
I guess in the US, it's slightly different. You all take bold approaches, I believe, which I really like. But here, we kind of wait. Risk averse, I would say.
And well, I mean, especially if from the finance perspective, being risk averse is just, I think I would hope that's natural, right?
As a finance director myself, I think I like to work with on the civil service side of things. There's a lot of bureaucracy, red tape, so then you naturally end up being slightly risk averse because of the repercussions of your actions and decisions and stakeholder. But I like to kind of really work with bold, innovative entrepreneurs, and I meet a lot of them. But obviously, they are in the very early stages and they cannot afford the day rates that fractional directors are looking for now. Particularly, our mortgages have all gone up by 500, 600 quid, right? With all the bank interest and inflation. So I think it'll take another maybe 6, 7, 8 years for these really great people to scale up, and then maybe they can afford us. Right now, we find the traditional companies who are looking for fractional finance talent, and they aren't as sort of bold and
Right.
fun and innovative. It will take time.
So how do we find the people that were trying to start doing this 8 years ago and are finally at that point? Like those are the ones that we all need and want to figure out how to find.
Right.
It's like we
Yeah.
can find the people who are just visionaries or complete smokers who have no clue, either one, right? But
Yeah.
finding that, okay, we finally got product market fit. We found a thing. We pivoted a bunch of times, and now how do we find those consistently?
I guess there are a couple of platforms where people are trying to go through their connections. So let's say I or you know a person who started a great business, simple idea, which is easy to scale. We don't want the complicated stuff and decomplexing it. We just want something simple, scalable, smart, easy. So probably if we are in touch, I think these are all got to do with networking, relationship building, and keeping in touch with these people. I don't think things work out like out of the blue within 6 months. It might take a couple of years being in touch with all the people you worked in previous companies and just building your own sort of black book of connections and checking where they are So I go to networking events in London and I meet all these like young people who are very sort of adventurous with their ideas. And I think they've got very good entrepreneurial skills, but obviously it's going to take it depends on how fast they're going to scale and grow for them to kind of hire me, and then probably referring each other, networking. Um, yeah, I think there are a few platforms where people are actively recommending people. Nothing seems to be straightforward, David. I wish life was as easy, but it's not.
You know, right? Awesome. Well, I appreciate your inputs. I do actually have kind of one other curiosity here. You mentioned day rates, and the day rates are kind of low, and that you're kind of seeing 1 day a week type of roles. I know that the UK and the finance industry, the finance side of the business, are a little harder to do something different. But I mean, do you think there is room and opportunity to experiment with something that's not a day rate? And, both from that financial director type of, role, as well as kind of in the UK, I know that like there's the expectation, just like over here, we expect an hourly rate, and you're just going to come in and they're going to say, well, what's your rate? And it's this many dollars an hour, and we work on that. And day rate's pretty common in the UK, but I wonder, I mean, I'm curious, do you think there's an opportunity for something different to price and package?
Yeah, there is an opportunity for hourly rates, and I've heard a couple where you can give like a 30-minute free consultation and then thereafter start charging. These could be typically new startups who really don't have the need to hire someone on a day, but maybe just an hourly fractional advice. Um, it depends on your sort of situation in your career and life where you have that sort of pool where you have so many people wanting an hourly service from you. And I think in the UK right now, a majority of us do not have those hourly clients to be able to kind of, have that
Well,
sort of.
And I'm thinking more like less something that's not time bound and not time related, so that it's back to the expertise that you bring. A lot of times, I mean, some of the packaging that I tend to advocate tends to be some sort of unlimited access retainer, where the scope is controlled differently than just time. So it's a monthly retainer, and they're available to them whenever they need it. Maybe there's some scope of actual work. I I I I don't know enough about the finance side of the industry, the job, right, to know like if that applies. But I expect that you're not coming in and doing their books. You're not doing
No,
numbers. You're just making sure that some of it's happening, right?
right. I do most of the strategic stuff, so it is overseeing operations and all the other planning stuff like that. So mine is a little bit more different. When it comes to retainer, I have come across a couple of opportunities, David, where I can bid into contracts in euro, and they would pay you, say, 1,300 euros a day, probably, and with a monthly retainer. So those opportunities are there, but the only issue is they want you to be either German based or you need to be speaking Spanish, and I can't do any of that. So I'm out. But it's always fun in what they expect. There's always a huge checklist going on.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it feels like there could be opportunity if one was willing to, if you had enough stable business to keep you busy, but not so busy that you didn't have time to experiment with new clients, right?
Yeah.
And then try to come up with some different packaging strategies and different approaches to what it is that you're selling. Um, Instead of just being a finance director, it's I help. I'm going to make this up, right? I'm going to help travel startups do something that's something magical. But solve that expensive problem, right? And that's the thing that you're due. It's not finance director. It's not that role. It's this specific targeted expertise. And then if you step away from that idea of the fractional finance director, because that ties back to the idea of the full-time finance director, then maybe you can come in as a strategic advisor, packaged and priced differently, that might be able to land a more money, less work.
Absolutely, yeah. So I do position myself as a strategic advisor because I've got a lot of finance business partnering experience across various functions in the business. So what we do is generally strategic, and it's just the titles are very confusing, right? Sometimes people might think, "Oh, finance director is very expensive, and I'll have to charge a lot of money, and it's just too much." But of course, I think we kind of change the way we pitch our words based on the size and the sector and the people. If they're more corporate, maybe we will say finance director, because if you say strategic advisor, they might pay you less and expect you to do more. But if it's
Interesting.
more entrepreneurial people, you might just say, "Oh, I'm not a finance director," because they might think, "Oh, I'm not yet at that stage for big stuff." You would just position yourself as a strategic director. Because I think, sorry, strategic advisor. End of the day, whatever I do is just the same thing, but different target audience and different problems. I think we have too many words and fancy stuff. People get too caught up. I think it's all the same.
Absolutely true. And it can be a trap, but it
Yeah.
can also be the thing that sets you apart, because you
Yeah.
sound like you're better or sound like you're different, even though we all know you're just doing the same thing.
Yeah. A little bit,
Well,
but don't take it wrong.
we know that because we're all experts. It's the issue with the other folks is, they know what they know, but they don't know everything that we know. So I think you're right, David. It's like it becomes an opportunity for experts to really hone their message depending on who they're talking to.
Yep. Cool.
Do you all have that in the CTO world where you kind of have a different terminology? I'm just trying to learn. I know that CIO and CTO.
Those are two
What would
terms
that
that
be?
do not overlap. They're funny how much they don't overlap.
The thing I'm seeing with a lot of early startups that don't have a technical co-founder is a lot of times CTO is just seen as their first engineering hire, their first developer. I'm like telling you,
Oh,
that's not a CTO.
no.
That's your first developer.
Who often eventually becomes promoted to your first CTO because they were
Yeah.
there first, and if they survived, they have the most knowledge within the organization, and
Yeah.
therefore seniority, and therefore your CTO is the most senior instead of the one that's appropriate to do the job at the stage of the company you are.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, we have all those same problems. The CTO versus CIO. I mean, we tend to joke a bit, but CTO tends to lean into product engineering, right? The company is building software, and that's that penultimate role of product software engineering, versus a CIO is internal infrastructure, right? The all of the computing systems that run the business and computing strategy around how the business runs. For example, where and why we run ERP systems, right?
Mhm.
That tends to be under a CIO, if there is a CIO. A lot of startups, especially in the US these days, don't have those types of roles until they get very large. But or they it become but it's often in a software company, it's often rolled in to the CTO role for a long time. IT becomes a part of that responsibility until somebody says, "Wait, we have compliance reasons that these have to report differently," and there are compliance reasons that we have to report these differently. Because just like security, product engineering, and the IT infrastructure all have their own problems and their own reporting spaces, and that conflict of interest, right? What makes the product engineering team work may not meet the requirements that you have for internal software, for running. The uptime for your ERP system is very different than the uptime for your product, and who it impacts. So lots of different challenges.
Interesting. Keeps all of you busy. I'm sure we have the same in finance as well. It gets too technical, and we always get asked, "How do you explain technical stuff to non-technical people?" All right, there we go again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have the same problem there, David, where you've got too much of supply than demand for fractional? And how are you guys navigating that space in the tech world?
Yes and no. I mean, I think right now we have a problem with too much supply across the software engineering space. Not that there's too much supply, but the demand has clawed back at the moment, and that's leaving this surplus. And just because of all of the things that we know, and fear operates businesses, that, and especially in the public, stock. Why is my brain not finding the word? But public companies that are listed on the stock exchange, right? They have an entirely different incentive about how and when you hire and fire, and they use that leverage, particularly in the software side, to prop up the business in one direction or the other. So we're seeing these gluts of unemployment in that space, even though sometimes the statistics look like it's the other way around, that we still have openings, because there has been a lot of openings that aren't real. Hiring is hard now, even if you have real openings, because I mean, I talked to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and in the first 24 hours, they had 1,000 applicants, and
Yeah.
used to that was 6 months, if not 6 months to get 100 sometimes, right? And how many of these are real? There's a lot of just resume stuffing. There's a lot of actual scams happening within that. And so that makes it challenging for the companies to hire. And that makes it even worse for those people who are trying to be hired. And at the leadership cell level, all of that still applies too. Hiring full-time leadership, hiring part-time leadership, it's still a challenge. I don't know that there's too much in the way of excess capacity inside the fractional space for the people who are intentionally building a business. I think that is still the minority. I think a lot of it is still, no offense, people who are in between their full-time jobs. um, and that they may decide that this becomes their business, or they may decide, that's a business and I didn't want to be a founder.
Yeah. I found a lot of founders going back into corporate as well. In terms of the UK hiring market, what I've noticed is when I hired as an interim person, a permanent person who's slightly junior to me into my team, we had around 100 applications. This was 2 years ago. Of that, we had to manually select. We didn't have the ATS system. We selected just maybe 5, and then we interviewed just 3. And it was really hard to get quality people. So I sometimes, and of course, right now, what I'm hearing is if if there are roles that go as remote, and even if they're slightly not paid as much, you get more than 100 applications within the first couple of hours. And there's also a slight change in the permanent. I don't do permanent, but I've just peeped around to see how the permanent market is going compared to interim versus fractional. Um, it's all a mixed bag, hit and miss, and I think across the board the pay is quite bad. The supply is really high, and there's too many applications, too little roles. Mostly only because of the global tensions. People are scared to kind of commit to anything. I think we see that across board, across sectors as well. We also saw the Japanese bond market really go quite pear-shaped the last couple of weeks as well, and across board. I've seen the ATS playing a huge role in the UK in terms of searching keywords, which means sometimes people also advise me, as soon as a role comes up, quickly apply, because they just go through the first 2-3 applications compared to about first in, first out sort of a thing. And I thought, that's not what I've faced the last 11 years of contracting. if they just go through your keywords and if they have your sort of experience, achievements, and your factual sort of quantified impacts, people quickly call you for interview.
Right. The ability now for the software to revise your resume on the fly and then send it in so that it meets all your keyword requirements.
Mm.
It destroys the. I mean, I don't know. The ATS systems have created a problem.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
I have heard more than a few cases now of people saying that we won't use the ATS. We will not publish our job anywhere except on our website. And we are going back to the old-fashioned method of email us.
It's brilliant. Nice.
Um,
Because most of my roles, I've had it through agencies who call me and they email me, so it's never advertised. So what I have noticed on large job sites is, like you said, keyword problem, too many applications, too little roles, and you never get replies. It's more of a CV collecting exercise, David, and then people call you on a one-to-one email or a call saying, "Oh, are you actively looking? Where did you find my CV? I just want to read." So I don't really bother to tweak my CV because I know it's just all fake roles or they just don't really actively recruit.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. I spent a fair amount of time in 2023 I was like, okay, I need to pivot and I will just find a job. I'm like, I know how to get a job. I know how to find a job. I will do that thing. I will suck it up, close up the business, find a job. Turns out, couldn't find a job. Because I mean that way, and it's progressively gotten more complicated as the AI tooling and stuff has integrated into the thing. But it was really, really, really hard. And it wasn't that there weren't jobs. It was just, I think that a lot of it is application pipelines are so stacked up.
Yeah.
When I in 22, when I was helping 21 and 22, I was helping clients hire. And then again in 24, I was helping clients hire. And it's just, there's so much bad in the pipeline that you can't even imagine. I mean, I've developed within the space that I hire, so DevOps, right? Sysadmins, DevOps. I've developed the skill to be able to just look at a resume and I can spend 5 seconds on a resume and move on, and say, okay, I'll look at this further, but I can skim those. But most of your talent teams have no ability. They don't know the stuff. They don't know how it applies to the team. So they can't do that. And a lot of your hiring managers, even if they have experience, or sometimes these are teams that don't have proper hiring managers because their CTOs are doing the hiring and they're the software people, not the infrastructure people. It's overwhelming to try to filter those down.
Sometimes the calls I get for finance who try to hire me have no clue, and I worry that our futures are in their hands because finance itself is technical, and then they make it more complex. It makes sense if they call up a CTO and ask, "Have you got NetSuite 5.0 or 3.2 experience?" It doesn't make sense for ERP finance directors like myself to know each module. But they just apply that banquet rule, and I'm like, it's all right. I probably will work on another role with you, and I politely get out of the recruitment thing beforehand, just for my sanity purpose. But yeah, so many people who don't have a clue and they're hiring, and sometimes I hear a lot of entrepreneurs and startup founders saying they really struggle to get funding because the rich people are the ones who are the ones that don't have much logic, and they ask you some questions where you go like, I'll fund the cloth, but not the table, sort of a thing. And you're like, but I need the table for the cloth.
And if you want the meal to wind up on the tablecloth, then we have to start.
That's it.
Yeah.
Meal is too much, David. The cloth and the table itself is too hard. People with money and the people with hiring and recruiting, it's fun.
Yep. How do we build this awesome thing without the kitchen and without all of the other pieces? Sorry, I'm the infrastructure guy. Where's the kitchen?
Do we need a kitchen? Sorry.
We can just outsource that, right?
Right. Yes. We always do outsourcing because we want to squeeze someone else's neck rather than our necks.
Right.
It's pushing responsibility and risk out. So yes.
It's funny you say that, right? I talked to somebody this morning, and they are a delivery agency. They build software for companies. He was honest. He said a lot of our customers, by the time they get to us, they are failing, and they're looking for somebody to build it that they can blame for their failure.
Correct.
He said,
That's what I've seen as well.
we have to figure out how to accept that going in, There's money
BPO
paid, but
huge.
yeah.
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 BPO is like, I think, an 80 billion industry or something because everyone's just outsourcing everything.
Yep.
Putting the risk out.
Right. Well, we are coming up on the hour. Anyone have any takeaways, any other questions, anything else we want to talk about for a couple minutes?
I had a quick question for Jan. Is there a way we can get in touch with you just in case one of us, runs into somebody that needs a finance director?
Oh yeah, of course. I will. So that's my. I'm just typing in my full name. I think I should just put my full name as my name on my Zoom. I keep thinking of it, and I completely miss it all the time. I'll work on it right away. I'll just send my LinkedIn link on the chat and just typing my full name as we speak, Brown, and that's my link and full name. Sorry for being naughty.
Awesome.
I should.
Thank you.
Welcome. I hope you've got it.
Nala Thundi?
Yep.
Nala Thundi?
Yeah, that's it. Nala Thundi.
Cool. Awesome. Link to Jan. That's an easy LinkedIn profile. Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone coming. It's been a good open coffee. We will do this again at same time next week, and the same time the next week after that. So you guys are welcome to come. Bring your friend.
Chat.
Yes,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.